Ladies and gentlemen, I go by the name of Arlo Maverick. I'm a man of many hats who just happens to rap, and today we're talking about production schedules. With an album, you want to create a production schedule. And what I mean by a production schedule is that looking at the activities that need to take place over the course of the recording of the project and figure out when those things are going to take place. This is key in order for you to actually stay within bounds of your budget and also within the boundaries of your time. One of the things that you want to factor into your production schedule is the time that's needed for you to actually write your music, or whether it be the lyrics or the actual music component of it. Now this is something you want to factor in well ahead of time because some people are able to get into that creative space, they're able to just write right away, but it's very important for you to actually designate a certain time within your production schedule to figuring out, okay, well, how long is it going to take for me to write? And this is where sometimes having a team of writers definitely helps out in the process, in the sense that now you have multiple people who are working towards writing something and allowing for you to actually stay within the timeline. Another activity you want to factor into your production schedule is the time needed for pre-production and scratch vocals as well too. You won't necessarily need too much time for this, and I guess it all depends on the project, but your pre-production is going to allow for you to have a smoother recording process and a smoother production process. So getting scratch vocals done that allow for you to go back and listen to the stuff and be like, okay, this is what I need to change, or having the producer have access to those scratch vocals so now they can actually produce around it is going to help in allowing your pre-production time period to go to be as smooth as possible and to be as productive and be as effective and efficient as you need it to be. Another activity that you're going to want to factor into your production schedule is the time that's needed to take care of mixing the album. This is a discussion that you should be having with your mix engineer prior to actually starting the project to see, okay, well, can we book out this much time in order to take care of the mixing? And that's one thing to understand in regards to all these activities I'm talking about. You have to have that communication open with your producer, with the mix engineer, with the studio, where everything's going to be tracked at, and make sure that time can be booked out for this. Maybe you're the type of artist who needs a full 8-hour day. Maybe you're the type of artist where it's like, okay, we're going to have 4 hours today, 4 hours in 2 more days. If you have the luxury of blocking out certain times and the studio can actually accommodate that, then block out times. If you feel that if you need 2 weeks of straight sessions where it's like, okay, today we're doing this, next day we're doing that, and so on and so forth, then block that time out because it allows you to stay within a zone. With everything that you're doing in regards to the scheduling of your project, one thing you have to factor in is that you may have a day job that you have to attend, and you may not have the luxury of blocking out 2 weeks to actually be in the studios and just focus in on getting things done. So you have to kind of work within the engineer's schedule, the studio schedule, in regards to when you can actually book dates, and be as prepared as possible so that when you're in the studio, you're making the best use of your time. Because again, once the clock starts, you're paying for that, right? As well too, you also want to make sure that you're getting things done in an efficient time, because everything is working in a domino effect. If you are behind with this, then it's going to throw off this. If you're behind with this, it's going to throw off this. So everything is kind of working together, especially if you create a schedule where if you know that, all right, well, next week we have guest vocalists coming through, but we need to have certain elements done for them to be able to create those vocals, or for them to track those vocals, then you have to make sure that you're on schedule and getting things done. You don't want to sacrifice quality. If something's not right, then that's where you have to kind of step back and be like, okay, well, maybe we need to reschedule these sessions. But that's a communication that you have to have with the engineer to make sure that everything is flowing properly, because that's what they do in order to pay their bills. So if you need to actually reschedule a session or cancel a session, then cancel it ahead of time. Don't cancel at the last minute, because that means that they're not getting their money, or they may charge you for that time period. Now, I spoke in regards to not having the luxury of taking time off from work in order to work on your project. There are grants that are available for what is called Subsistence, which basically means that you are able to apply for funding that's going to cover your basic necessities. So whether it be your groceries, whether it be your rent, whether it be your car payments, you basically would put together a budget saying that for this particular time period, let's say it's 3 months, you will be be in the studio, so you're asking for subsistence so you can actually make sure that these bills do not fall behind. And if you get awarded for that, that means that now you could actually take time off work and say, hey, I'm going to take a month off and I'm going to focus on this project here. Hopefully you'll have the luxury of doing that, because if you do, then that's great, because now you can focus in and be an artist. But not all of us have that luxury. So with some people, you have to create a schedule that factors in the fact that you may be at work from 8 to 5. So that means that once you're done work, okay, go home, shower, hit the studio, you know? Or maybe it's a situation where you schedule your production sessions or recording sessions to be on the weekend. All of this is something that you have to factor early on in the creation of your project, so that once you hit the studio, everything is running smooth, everything is running efficiently. Another thing you want to factor into your production schedule is the mastering of the album. Have you spoken with the mastering engineer? Have you scheduled a time? Do you have an estimated time of arrival in regards to your project? Because if you have that and now the engineer is getting that on time, that means that your project will arrive on time. With all these things that I talk about, you're essentially working towards the album release. So you have to communicate with the studio engineer, you have to communicate with your producers, you have to communicate with the mastering guy, you have to communicate with the manufacturing company if you are going to manufacture your CDs, and figure out, okay, give yourself a buffer for almost everything that takes place, just in case something happens, just in case you get sick and all of a sudden you can't track vocals, or just in case the studio that you're recording at, let's say they have like a flood there, or God forbid, right? But let's say something like that were to happen, then you could essentially say, okay, well, I factored that time into there. Maybe you'll have to switch to another studio, but at the same time though, you've given yourself a buffer so that if anything does come up that you weren't expecting, you're okay. Now, one of the things you should not do is plan your release party prior to you getting your CDs. So all of this is basically building up to your album release, but what's more important is to make sure that you have a decent amount of time between when your album is completed, so whether it's manufactured or if you're going with a digital, just master, have enough time between that and when you actually want to do the release. In between that time of your album being done and when it's released, that's when you should be looking at the marketing initiatives and kind of just, now that you have the final product and you can see what it's about, now you can actually start working towards those marketing initiatives. But I strongly recommend that you don't say that, okay, well, we're going to have this release party on this date here, and then all of a sudden you're still not even done what you need to get done, and now your fans are like, well, we want to set up a release party, but there's no actual release for you to be celebrating. So food for thought that you should definitely take into consideration. So in closing, I want to thank you once again for tuning in to these vlogs where I try to drop as many music gems as possible, and hopefully people are watching these and taking notes and adding to this information by researching the topics that I talk about and expanding their knowledge. But if you were able to take a gem or two from this video, then I hope that you would click like. I also would hope that you would comment below and allow for there to be a dialogue that goes back and forth between us as people who are coming to this YouTube page to find out more information. Just as much as I have information to offer, I am also down to receive information as well too. So please comment, share what you feel needs to be said. Because there may be somebody else with a question that I have not answered, but maybe the gem that you dropped might be the answer that they needed that I wasn't even thinking about, or that I may not have even known about. So yeah, again, in closing, make sure you check me out on youtube.com/Arlo Maverick. Subscribe to the page. Make sure you find me on social media as well too. I am on bring it back to the beginning. As well too, don't forget that I am on social media, so you can find me at facebook.com/Arlo Maverick. You can find me on Twitter at Arlo Maverick. I do post Woman Crush Wednesday every now and then, so you can see who I think is popping. As well too, I am on Twitter, so make sure you follow me there at Arlo Maverick. And I guess until the next episode, as I always say,